Come here, bud. Come here. I told him you were wild, okay, the other day. All right, tell me when I'm on.
You're on now.
Oh, I'm on already? Okay, all right. So I told folks that I would show you off Griffin at some point in the videos, and there he goes. Okay, all right. Welcome to HortTube. My name is Putnam. We've been doing these series of videos about favorite flowering plants for different times of the year, and definitely as we get toward fall, camellias are definitely my absolute favorite flowering plant for kind of what I would call the off season. And for me, what that meant when I had my landscape company and my nursery was that the only time of year I was kind of slow was the time of year the camellias were blooming. And so this is a Camellia sasanqua. This is actually one I grew at my nursery years ago. And I don't know the actual variety of this one. I don't remember because I grew a lot of different Camellia sasanqua varieties. There are a ton of named varieties. So within the genus Camellia, there's a lot of different species, truly a lot of different species. Camellia sasanquas are very common though. They're hardy in zones 7 to 9, with some being picked in a couple different series that are hardy, supposed to be hardy into zone 6. I've never lived in zone 6, so I don't know how hardy they actually are. Certainly 6B would be a place where you could, where I would be trying camellias for sure. Again, I love them. There are different flower types. So again, this species is Camellia sasanqua. This is the one that's going to bloom pretty much. We have one out front called Crimson and Clover that blooms pretty daggone early. It's throwing flowers right at the end of August, beginning of September. Very early that thing starts blooming, and it's still got some flowers on it now and some buds on it. But the vast majority of them for us here in zone 7, we'll get cooler nights that will start getting flowers in October. November is kind of peak season for Camellia sasanquas. In zone 7, these are hardy in, again, 7, 8, and 9, and 8 and 9, they're probably just getting started, whereas we've probably spent about half the flower buds on ours at this point. The beauty of these is last night it was 25 degrees out here, and most all of the flowers on it, open flowers on it, got damaged. Okay, and you go, oh man, worst thing ever. Oh no, but it's no big deal on camellias, because camellias, a big portion of the flower buds are still closed up good and tight, and that 25-degree night didn't affect them at all. And so, while again, we've lost some flowers overnight, I wanted to show off the fact that given 3-4 more warm days, it'll look like it's back in full bloom again. There's actually 5 flower buds in that one little spot right there. Only one has opened so far, so that's an interesting thing. We're gonna get lots of different flower types on camellias, so you'll get singles, where you'll just have a series of flat petals basically, and then you'll have the middle part of the flower completely exposed. Pollinators really do love these on warm days. You'll see bees wandering about the center of these flowers. We have kind of semi-double flowers. You'll have doubles, and you'll have formal doubles, really formal doubles, not so much on the Camellia sasanquas, although we have one out front that's pretty daggone perfect for a Camellia sasanqua. And then you'll get peony type flowers as well. But so right now is peak Camellia sasanqua time. Once we get past the first of the year, we have a couple Camellia japonicas out here in the garden. They tend to have much larger flowers on them as a whole, but they also, again, come in singles, semi-doubles, doubles, peony types, many different types of flowers on them, and lots of different colors as well. So again, let's jump around and take a look at a couple other sasanquas. Where are you going, boy? Where are you going? Come on, Griffin. Come, Griffin, come. So we were looking at a Camellia sasanqua over there. This is another one. I mentioned Camellia japonicas will bloom on the other side of the calendar in January, February, and I have one that will actually, called Early Wonder, that will actually start blooming here in the fall. It hasn't opened a flower yet, but that's a Camellia japonica. So there's no real rules necessarily, because there are selections, cultivars that will do different things at different times. And then there's a lot of other species. There's a species called azalea, which is confusing. It's Camellia azalea, that will bloom in the summertime, and those are going to be released over the next few years. You're going to see a wave of summer flowering camellias. Again, I love these winter flowering camellias because they're just blooming at a time of year when not much else is. Probably my favorite Camellia sasanqua out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of named varieties out there is October Magic Ruby. And this one is in the Southern Living Plant Collection. The October Magic series is. We'll see another one in just a second. Again, last night it was 25 degrees and the vast majority of the open flowers got damaged, although still very attractive. They're still beautiful, right? I mean, it's not nothing unattractive about these flowers. But they did take a little bit of damage last night, and these are going to fall off. But this thing is absolutely loaded with flower buds that haven't opened yet, weren't damaged by that cold. And so this thing will continue to bloom on and off. We'll get some sort of mid-20s night that will knock it back, and then a few 60-degree days that'll wake it back up, and it'll be back in full bloom over and over and over again. Ruby is my favorite because it's so compact and it's so clean. The foliage is beautiful. These are 12-month plants. These aren't these aren't, oh, they come into flower in November and they're wonderful. These look great year round. This was the first plant that was planted in this garden here in Raleigh as part of this project. It was a little 3-gallon container at that time. It's grown up now to about 3.5 feet tall, 3.5 feet wide, absolutely fully loaded in buds, and it'll be blooming for several weeks. Give me that. You give me that. There you go. There you go. That's exactly what I knew would happen if you had him in a video. Okay. This is one of my other Camellia sasanqua favorites. This is October Magic Orchid. This is another one of Bobby Green's introductions. And you can go back on the channel. Holly and Griffin are in there having a conversation with one another. Now, you can go back on the channel and look at videos I've actually done with Bobby Green down in Fairhope, Alabama. Him and his family have been introducing camellias for a long time, and they've really changed them a lot. The foliage is so clean, and by clean I mean there's no spotting on the leaf, there's no no leaf spots, there's no thinning. It's a really full, compact, dense plant, and whether it flowered or not, it's still a great looking plant. But this is October Magic Orchid. Typically is white with a little pink fringe around the edge of each flower. These got cooked a little bit, same thing last night. And so they're off color slightly. Over the next couple days, that'll just kind of disappear. Camellias are very good at eating their own flowers, meaning that they don't linger on there and look bad for some period of time. They quickly drop the petals off to the ground, and then new flower buds emerge or open once we get some cooler nights. These aren't the fastest growing things in the world. Camellias are typically very slow to get started. This is about 3.5 years from a 3-gallon container, and it's in highly improved soil. I mean, there was compost added. There was originally wood chips put here. And so this has probably grown a little bit faster than they normally would. Maintenance-wise on camellias, there's not a whole lot. If you put the right plant in the right place, and that's key here, put the right plant in the right place. Got the October Magic Ruby over there because it grows flat, and I got a window on the front of the shed, and I want to keep it below the window. Got this one on the corner of the foundation, and I want it to be tall and narrow, and that's kind of how October Magic Orchid grows. You can see all the vertical growth in here. The end of winter, March, April, I'll come in here and cut these down if I want to control the height on it. Maybe there's a limb going out to the side somewhere that I don't want to keep on it. I could cut that off any time of year I wanted to. General pruning late winter. It gets fertilized once a year. Camellias are acid-loving plants, same as azaleas, rhododendrons, hollies. They all fit into that category. If you know your soil pH, if your pH is already acidic, let's say it's between, so the way this meter works is 7 is neutral, everything under 7 is considered acid soil. So if your pH is between 4.5 and 6.5, something like that, you do not need to correct the pH in any way. You do not need a fertilizer for acid-loving plants. Just use a regular fertilizer. If your pH is 6.5, 7, 7.5, up to 8. 8's probably not a good pH to be growing camellias in, but if it is, you can add a soil acidifier to the soil to try to bring that pH down a bit. A couple more of Bobby Green's introductions out here in the garden. This is October Magic White Shishi. And this is the one, the white flower that I mentioned that is almost a near perfect double, which is pretty unusual for Camellia sasanquas. This one got burned a little bit last night, but again, these petals are just going to kind of melt away, and the other flower buds that are on it will open up in the next few days. So it's kind of cool because it keeps flowers in reserve, and that kind of buffers against the fact that it's cold this time of year, right? You're going to get cold days. Camellias typically like pretty well-drained soil. They're extremely drought tolerant once they're established, and I've said for many years some of the best camellias I've ever seen are on old farmhouses and in old areas where people, you know, haven't done anything to them in years. When they initially go in, you'll want to water them, get them established just like anything else. Don't overwater them. And when you plant them, we have a clay-based soil here, so I do raise them up just a bit. So they need to be moist, well-drained soil, which you'll read that all the time. You know, what does that mean? Keep it moist, but don't let it get wet. In this clay-based soil, I always mound the camellias up a bit, and they do fine. That iron that's in that clay, that orange clay that we have here, that iron and that low pH, which allows this iron to be be taken up by the plant, is what gives it this really rich, dark green, shiny foliage that they're just so famous for being so nice without flowers. We've been out of town for 2 months, and we don't get very many weeds in the garden. I mentioned it in a video the other day, but what we do get are some woody, perennial, invasive weeds. And this ligustrum has managed to come up in the middle of this camellia, and the foliage looks just similar enough that it's managed to escape me weeding this now 2.5 foot tall, two of them. So very special bird landed here, deposited these, and then it was, camouflaged the whole season. It is now mulch, so it accomplished nothing, and now it's gone. The other one of Bobby Green's introduction that's back here, this is that crimson and clover that I mentioned. This one's really unique because it starts blooming earlier than any Camellia sasanqua I've ever seen, and when it starts, they're really red, really red flowers. And as the nights get cooler during the fall, the buds that open later open more of a kind of a crimson color, more of a burgundy, a little bit more of a burgundy hue to them. Really nice plant. This one's a little faster growing, and this is one of the things about picking the right plant for the right space. This white shishi and October Magic Ruby in the back garden grow low and flat, and they're the perfect plant for kind of the middle of this bed. I've got tall things back here, tall things here, got kind of a middle group of evergreen shrubs, and then it's stepping down toward the front of the bed, kind of perfect for that spot. This crimson and clover, very vertical, very fast growing in comparison to some other camellias. Almost all the Camellia japonicas are going to get big, and they belong in the back of the bed. They belong someplace where they're going to be the evergreen backdrop to other things. They're great screening plants and great in mixed border screens. In zone 7, we'd have to be a little more careful having them out in open wind. Even though they're hardy in zone 7 to 9, the potential for the foliage to be burned out in open space can be an issue. Typically, you're going to see part shade or shade on camellias. There is a point of too much shade, and you'll get less flower buds, a lot of stretching, like is what's happening with this one back here, because it's back in here, it's really quite shady. Out toward the front of the bed here, it's a little less shady. Although this October Magic White Shishi is definitely not as full as that October Magic Ruby we saw in the back, because it's getting a little bit more direct sun. The answer is a half a day sun. That's kind of the perfect spot for these camellias. I want to keep them full and compact and loaded up with flower buds, but I don't want them in 15 hours of sun. One of the main things is if the roots get hot, that's the main issue with these, is that when you put them out in the full sun, it's not necessarily the foliage that's going to get burned. It's the sun hitting the soil and having a very shallow rooted plant. The roots being burned on it is what causes a lot of the issues with them being in too much sun. No. There you go. There you go. So my guess is at this point is Griffin has completely stolen this video from his antics, which I've always said that Griffin's not in the videos for a reason, and there's the reason. He is just, y'all let him out, and it's like winding up, it's like winding something up until it just goes boom. So camellias, I just don't think there's anything that adds more interest in the garden. If you're in zone 7 to 9 and you got a park shade situation, there's just nothing that adds more just overall interest in my mind into the garden, because you've got this evergreen, shiny foliage thing that can either be a screening plant, be a foundation plant, be, you know, whatever you need that evergreen shrub to be. And then out of the blue, when everything else in your garden stops, this thing comes into flower, and you can have white flowers or pink flowers or red flowers, and then combinations of, we'll get variegations in the color, different flower types as well. Be careful buying camellias. You can become a collector and end up with lots and lots and lots of them. When I grew camellias, I grew a lot of different varieties of camellias, and one of the things I kind of miss, camellias aren't the easiest things in the world to root, and they take a lot of patience to grow initially, to get roots on them, to get them established and get any size on them. And I kind of enjoyed that process in the nursery business, and you know, it's one of the things that I grew lots and lots and lots of because other people weren't as patient, and so it left a little niche for me to grow these. And so again, I've just always enjoyed them. But this is Camellia sasanquas. Later on, if you're following the channel, when the Camellia japonicas are blooming and other species of camellias that we run into on the road, we'll show you those as well. Thanks for watching.